Welcome, listeners, to a descent into one of the most profoundly disturbing cases ever recorded, not just in the Missouri Ozarks, but in the annals of human experience. Before we begin, I must ask, where are you listening from? And note the exact time. We are interested in tracking where and when these accounts are heard. It was an unnaturally warm autumn in 1890 when the people of Shannon County first began to whisper about the things that had once been the Holloway sisters. They had names before, of course. Elizabeth and Margaret. What happened to them was not just a tragedy, it was an erasure, a violation of nature so complete it was systematically purged from official records, surviving only in terrified whispers and the frantic scribbles of those who stumbled upon the truth. The Holloways had purchased a remote homestead 12 miles southeast of Eminence, a place at the end of a fading path called Wildess's Trail. The previous owners had abandoned it, and the seller, a gaunt man who smelled of damp earth, completed the transaction with a trembling hand. To the county clerk, he whispered a warning that would later haunt the man's dreams: some soil is not meant for certain seeds. The family was a fractured thing. Thomas Holloway, a widower, had fled Pennsylvania with his 2 daughters after his wife, Caroline, succumbed to a deep melancholia, a polite term for a self-inflicted end in the family bathtub. Elizabeth was 16, Margaret 14. They were pale, quiet girls who attended school sporadically before vanishing from the community entirely. Their father claimed the journey was too arduous. The truth was far darker. What follows is a tapestry of terror woven from fragments: a journal found bricked up in a courthouse wall, statements given to a sheriff who later drank himself to death, and the nightmares of WPA researchers in the 1930s who swore they could still hear the chanting in their sleep. The homestead itself was a character in this horror. A 2-story structure of local oak and limestone, its windows were like sightless eyes. Photographs from a county assessment show it hunched against the encroaching forest, a vile growth on the land. But the true horror lay 200 yards behind the house, a limestone formation rising 30 feet, its south face scarred with ancient, weather-worn pictographs that seemed to shift under one's gaze. The girls became obsessed with it, spending hours copying the blasphemous symbols into their school books. The first crack in reality appeared in July 1890. Thomas Holloway came to town. Jeremiah Collins, the store owner, noted his eyes were wrong. They didn't focus, but seemed to look through things. He bought enough candles and lamp oil to illuminate a church. When asked after his daughters, he stared for a full 30 seconds before replying in a flat, hollow tone, "They are occupied with their studies." Reverend Harold Blackwood encountered him next. Holloway, reeking of wood smoke and something fouler, like wet clay and spoiled meat, grabbed the Reverend's arm. His fingers were cold, despite the heat. "Do the scriptures speak of voices that come without bodies?" he begged. As he left, he turned back, his face a mask of utter despair. "They don't speak to me directly. Only to the girls. But sometimes I can hear them when the girls repeat the words." By August, Thomas had vanished from town. The mail carrier, William Pierce, found the property suffocating in silence. The garden was a tangle of rot. Every window was boarded from the inside with quilts, turning the house into a sealed tomb. Thomas answered the door a mere crack, a gaunt, unwashed spectre. Pierce caught a glimpse of the interior. The air swam with dust motes in the candlelight, and the walls were moving. Not with life, but with writing. Every inch was covered in a frantic, crawling script. But the true horror came as Pierce mounted his horse to leave. A sound drifted from the house, not voices, but a single voice, spoken in perfect, chilling unison by 2 throats. They were reciting something, their tones flat and metallic. And then, movement by the limestone formation. 2 figures in soiled white nightgowns, their arms outstretched, were circling the base of the rock. Their heads were tilted back at the same impossible angle, their feet moving in a slow, synchronized shuffle that was utterly inhuman. They were not playing. They were performing a ritual. The disappearances began in September. Abraham Satan, a trapper, vanished after telling his wife he'd heard girls singing in a part of the woods with no trails, a place of sheer rock and dense thorns. He said the song made his teeth ache. Then Mary Eldridge, 15, vanished while picking blackberries near the Holloway land. Her younger brother, in a terrified confession, admitted she hadn't just wandered off. She had heard her name called from the trees by two voices speaking as one. This finally forced Sheriff James Mallister to visit the homestead. His official report is dry. His private journal reveals the true abomination. He found Thomas Holloway a broken man, his body trembling with a constant, low-grade tremor. The interior of the house was a furnace, the stench of old smoke, sweat, and a sweet, fungal rot making it hard to breathe. And there were the girls. Elizabeth and Margaret sat at a table, their hands moving in perfect symmetry, scratching that unknown script onto paper. They did not blink. They did not breathe. They turned their heads in flawless unison to look at him, their faces pale and waxy. Their eyes were the worst, milky and depthless, like quartz. The writing on the walls was a nightmare in ink and charcoal. Biblical passages about angels with many eyes and voices like roaring water were intertwined with that insane, looping script. Behind the girls, a section of wall had been clawed raw, the symbols carved deep into the wood in concentric circles around a central sigil that looked like a spiraling, hungry mouth. The air seemed thick, resistant, Mallister wrote. The house itself objected to my presence. Those girls, their movements were not their own. It was as if they were puppets controlled by a single, unseen hand. He left, shaken to his core, and promised to return. He did, a week later, with his deputy. They found the house empty, but not abandoned. It was a staged scene. Dishes were clean, beds made with military precision. It was the order of a place that no longer needed food or sleep. In the girls' room, their beds were pushed together. The wall above was a sprawling mural of the unknown script, looking less like writing and more like a map of some alien nervous system. On a small table between the windows stood two corn-husk dolls, faceless, wearing scraps of the girls' white nightgowns. They were positioned with their stitched hands touching. In Thomas's room, his journal lay open. The final entry, they say we must go to the stone tonight. They are waiting for us there. May God forgive what we have become. But the most damning evidence was found in the root cellar, Margaret's journal. August 17, 1890, Father has nailed the quilts over the windows. He says the light confuses us, that it's better to live as they do. Elizabeth and I have begun transcribing what they tell us. My hand cramps, but the voice in my head won't let me stop. August 23, 1890, the limestone holds the doorway. We saw it open today. There is another place behind this one, a cold place. The voices come from there. They say we are special because we can hear them when others cannot. Elizabeth says we are becoming like the voices now. I think she is right. We do not feel hunger or cold as we once did. September 12, 1890, the trapper came too close. He heard us singing by the stone. He was not ready to understand. The voices say some must go ahead to prepare the way. The final entry, dated September 15, was a single, stark sentence: the walls can no longer contain what we've learned. A search of the limestone formation revealed a circle of hard-packed earth at its base, worn smooth by countless circling footsteps. Carved into the rock at eye level was that same spiraling mouth sigil. The disappearances didn't end. Daniel Foster, a 17-year-old, vanished for 3 days. He was found wandering the riverbank, muttering, "They are still walking." His forearms were carved with the Holloway script. He was committed to an asylum, where he spent his days drawing picture after picture of two faceless women in white standing before a dark, vertical slit in a rock. He would whisper, "The door they found. The way they took me." Sightings of the Wanderer sisters began almost immediately. Two figures in white, gliding through the trees at dusk or dawn, moving as one entity. They were seen by sober, reliable men. Samuel Jenkins said they looked like they belonged there more than he did, their skin glowing with a faint, phosphorescent light, their white dresses untouched by mud or briar. The house burned to the ground in a fire that started in multiple places at once. The terrible writings on the walls were silenced. But the story wasn't over. In 1898, a survey team found a cave. Inside was a chamber that defied explanation. The walls were covered in meticulously carved symbols. Small bones, animal, and some too disturbingly large to contemplate, were arranged in precise geometric patterns on a flat altar stone. In a carved niche at the back of the cave, they found two cornhusk dolls, positioned as if walking into the solid rock. The surveyor, Edward Marley, wrote in his private journal that the air in the cave was oppressive, and that his men heard whispers from the stone itself. He deliberately mismarked the cave's location on all official maps. The legend solidified, a cancer in the heart of the Ozarks. The girls were never found. Their fate is a thing of utter darkness. In 1965, construction workers found a metal box buried by Thomas Holloway. His final letter contained the truth he could no longer bear. I brought my daughters here hoping the isolation would help them. Instead, the solitude revealed something in them, or in this land. They hear voices that have taught them words no human tongue should speak. They no longer need food or sleep. Last night I awoke to find them standing over my bed, watching me with eyes that reflected light like animals. They spoke my name in unison, in voices that were no longer their own. They said they had transcended. I do not know what will happen to me. I can only pray that whatever walks wearing their faces now, it remains confined to these hills. Beneath the box, carved into the underside of a great stone, was the same spiraling mouth sigil. The most horrifying testimony came from the mail carrier, William Pierce, who confessed in a private letter decades later what he truly saw that day he peered into the Holloway home. What I did not tell the sheriff was the condition of the girls' feet. They were bare, and from ankle to toe, they were not skin. They were covered in a brown, fibrous bark, fused to the flesh. When they shifted position, I heard a sound like dry roots snapping. This aligns with Daniel Foster's most disturbing asylum drawing, the sisters with their legs transformed into gnarled, root-like appendages, sinking into the earth. The story doesn't end. It feeds. In 1968, a graduate student researching the legend vanished. Her camera was found. The last photo, blurred and taken in panic, shows two figures in white at the edge of the woods. Their backs are to the camera. Their heads are turned exactly 90 degrees to the side, staring back at her over their shoulders, their faces featureless white ovals. She was never seen again. So, you are now a part of this. You know the story. You've heard the descriptions. You can picture the script, the sigil, the sisters moving as one. Be careful, listener. Now that you know, you may start to notice things. A flicker of white at the edge of your vision in a deep wood. A sound on the wind that might be two voices harmonizing with itself. A strange compulsion to walk towards a limestone bluff at dusk. If you hear them singing, do not follow the sound. Close your windows. Lock your doors. And pray the light keeps them confused. They are still walking. And they are always looking for new companions for their journey between the worlds.